button?
Yes, I did. Hello, welcome to Magetalk Live. I'm Kalen.
I'm Phillip.
And I'm Slava.
What's up, you guys? What's up, everybody?
Freaking love this. This is awesome. Welcome, Slava. And for those who don't know Slava, introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from.
I'm Slava, originally from Ukraine, but those days it's hard to tell where I am. So moving around and running e-commerce agency called Atwix.
That's awesome. And what is it that you would say that you do there?
Run, yeah.
Do around here.
Well, those days, a little bit of everything, a little bit of key account management, a little bit of sales, talking to people at the conferences, trying to be a scrum master for the management team, and yeah.
He makes YouTube videos, Phillip. That's what he does.
You're confusing him with someone else that you know.
Dude, bro, I literally did not realize this until a week or two ago. Slava has a YouTube travel channel. He has like you have like 200 something subscribers, right?
Yeah, 275 or something.
It's in Slovakian or Ukrainian, or
it's mostly in Russian. Somewhere in English a little bit, but I have captions in English for every episode. But it's pretty new. There are just 2 episodes so far, and my partner Elena, she helps to do this. She actually does all the video editing stuff, and yeah.
And isn't that wild?
Yeah, no, I knew that they were embarking on a big overland adventure, which I want to hear all about, by the way. And they have this crazy outfitted, truck that they're going to drive, thousands of miles and millions of kilometers. I'm not sure how the conversion rate works, but they'll be heading out on that pretty soon. But I started following Elena on Instagram, and I don't understand anything because most of it's not in English, but it's actually really fun to watch you two. You guys are awesome. So.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing your trip. That's going to be really cool. Where are you going, by the way?
Sorry about that. As per usual, I'm going to be breaking
out. You can't have you can't have a normal conversation for a minute
with the live show. Actually, I can't. We got Emily Peppermint in the room. She says hi. Kyle Ban Savage, coolest last name that we've seen to date in the channel. Eric Heilman says hello, Scrum Master Slava. Emily says, hi, Slava. Tell Victoria and Alexander hi from Emily. Dude, we got a lot of people in here. Elena says, hi, everyone.
Well, that's who we're talking about, isn't it?
That's exactly what we're talking about. So see, this is the magic of the live stream. And then, oh my gosh, they keep coming in. Richard Bike says, link to Instagram. So, Phillip, maybe you could drop a link or Slava into the Instagram that you mentioned.
For Elena. Elena is in the chat. Elena, put the link to your Instagram in there.
And then last,
if you want like some serious dancing, Elena's Instagram is the place to get it. She's like trippy too. She's got this whole like she's got this like she does a lot with her hands. It's like that.
I think
I couldn't possibly
thumbnail. I think you just gave us our thumbnail.
Every week I make the thumbnail.
I appreciate it. Awesome. So shoot, man, Slava. By the way, everybody out there in internet land, if you have any questions, shoot them at us for Slava. We're going to talk about a couple of topics, right? We're going to talk. You guys are a fully distributed team, and you guys have been around for a while. So talk about what you guys do and how your distributed teams work. And I think there were some other topics we talked about that we'll talk about. Slava, anything else that we're going to cover high level
contributions, here? Magento contributions, I guess. Well, and
kind of a big deal.
We'll see where the conversation goes.
Okay, well, let's jump into the contributions because when Phillip said kind of a big deal, I could read between the lines and see that he was thinking about his heartache over the contribution points matter that we've gone over ad nauseum. Have you guys? So what was your? Well, you guys were the #1 contributor, right? So you got
in the first quarter. Yes, we were.
First quarter, 2018.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Kalen, don't go spreading misinformation on your, as you are wont to do on your new video live streams. We wouldn't want you to get in trouble.
The cloud, the cloud.
By the way, so Pranav, if you're watching, like I kind of love watching you jump down Kalen's throat. I want you to do that a little more often.
Yeah,
maybe not as often. Space it out a little bit. But Kalen could use a little correction every now and then. I'm like,
from someone other than you. No, I actually really appreciated Pranav diving in. My level of respect, we just grew with every tweet. I was like, dude, this guy.
Now here's the ticket. I wonder how much Mark Lavelle and Mark Leonard appreciate Pranav jumping in conversations. Like that's the question I have. What does Magento's top brass think of Pranav jumping into these like very heated discussions on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm assuming today's was an interesting day at HQ.
Yeah. When Karen Baker is subtweeting like, when did everyone start being so feisty? It's like, stuff is happening.
Stuff's popping off when Karen is seeing it.
When Karen's like, I think you all need to simmer down. That's when that's when the S has hit the proverbial F. So,
right. But Slava, so flesh that out first, man. How did you guys go about that? How did you structure that within your team? What did you guys do? Give us the spiel.
You mean the contributions or being distributed?
Yeah. Contributions.
Yeah. So we got involved into mainly, I think the MSI project is the number one target for our contributions. It's important to help deliver this piece of functionality on time, and since it's completely or almost completely community driven, that's where most of the help is needed. And we've got actually started heavily after the contribution day. The one that we hosted here in our Ukrainian office was I think that was Atwix Thursday, and we decided to make a meetup, the local meetup, and you wouldn't believe even in small cities in Ukraine, the concentration of developers is so high that like our city is 300,000 people more or less, and we were able to.
You have like 200,000 Magento developers out of it.
Yeah, so basically we had like 70 people at the meetup, which is probably quite a lot for the first time meetup in a small town. But we also invited guys over from Kiev's office, the Ukrainian office of Magento. They came and made the presentation, and the next day we made the contribution day. And it was kind of a nice way for people to get involved. For those who were afraid or didn't know how to contribute, they could make their first pull requests under, let's say, assistance from their peers and also people from Magento. So that was kind of a challenge, the exciting challenge to make it. And then people just keep doing this. But of course, I think some kind of incentive and energy has to come out from the company as well, because we need to keep the fire going. So
now, Slava, are you angling for a Magento Master Award 2019? Because you're
as a company.
As a person, you're following Phillip's pattern. You're starting meetups. You're doing contributions.
There's no pattern, Kalen. Pranav, can you correct Kalen right now? I'd really.
Actually, Sherry has corrected me on that a couple of times. Yeah. She's like, dude, I literally say exactly what the criteria are in the post about things. Yeah. So anyways.
As a complete aside, I think Fumin just did a blog. Christoph did a blog over at Fumin about he threw sort of machine learning statistical analysis at what it takes to be a Magento master, and it's kind of an interesting read. But Slava, sorry, answer the question. So is you just have so much love in your heart for Magento that you or is this something you guys have sort of been doing already that at least is being made more public these days?
You mean the contributions? Yeah, it's or I don't think to answer Kalen's questions. I think there are more the other people in the company that deserve to be Magento masters more than me.
Yeah.
For example, our CTO is quite active on the contribution side. He's a maintainer.
Now he's trying to get multiple masters awards.
Oh yeah.
He's trying to get one for himself and his CTO.
Atwix already has had one. So Alexander Gautso was a first year Magento master. He works at Atwix now. So.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, but that's not the reason. So even if you look at the incentives for the contributions, like the Magento activity points, we get, I think, something like 3 points for being number one in the first quarter. But that's as a partner, you probably need to get 60 a year or something like that. So it's like
Good
5% of your achievements. So
how does that compare to, because I don't know too much about how these activity points work, and if it's totally NDA'd, you guys can't share it, that's cool, but like,
I don't think it's NDA'd.
How does that compare to other things that get you activity points, like enterprise licenses or whatever? Like what like, if you could compare the three points into context.
I'm not sure about the NDAs and how deep they go, but my feeling is that you get more points for different things.
For literally everything.
Than for being the top one contributor.
I'm waiting for
Slava, let me teach you how to answer a question like this.
Okay.
No comment. That's how you answer. No.
Like North Korean embassy, right?
You gotta learn from Phillip.
The right way to answer this is that let's say it like this. Kalen, if you were going to design a program where you could qualify someone's activity based on their partnership, what are the kinds of things you would incentivize that might play well with other business goals that you might have? Would it be like, how would you distribute the points, right? And like, where would you set the threshold to say that someone qualifies to be a partner this year based on what they did last year? Would it be, which would you give more points to? Writing code for our platform or closing net new business for my company, right? Like I guess that's you put yourself in that position of what you're trying to incentivize and what is important to you as a business for the longevity of your business. And then you might naturally come up with a system like Magento has. I don't know that the number of points is important at all. I think it's about just trying to get people to do you're not even listening. You're just on your phone. It's fine.
I'm queuing up the comments. I can talk.
You're not going to answer the question. You're just going to start reading people's name in the list. That's fine. And like whatever.
We got. Speaking of which, we got Bert Flaxton in the room. Elena put her Instagram in there. Konstantin, Roman Glushko, and then cabinets.com. We got Ben from cabinets.com.
Hey.
My 3 favorite Magento guys. I believe they're a client, right? Of you guys.
They are.
Absolutely.
They're an Atwix client, I must say. And they're a very proud Atwix client. Although they do drive 3, Ben has driven with cabinets.com folks 3+ hours to multiple meetups here in South Florida. So props to Ben. And
it's intense. Cool. And then we've got Alex Taranovsky. In 2 days, Slava will celebrate his 30th birthday. So best wishes. That's exciting. The big 3-0.
Yeah.
And he already has memory loss. That's set in early.
Yeah, that was a nice day to pick to start the Africa adventure, the overland trip to South Africa. So
okay, so tell us. All right, now we are talking about the trip. So tell us a little bit about the trip and what you're aiming to do in this adventure.
Yeah, so we head in together with my partner Elena. We go. We drive a Toyota Land Cruiser truck, which is like a small motorhome. We go all the way from Ukraine to Spain, cross into the ferry into Morocco, and then down the west coast to South Africa. So that's about 20 countries on the way, and will take a few months. And but hopefully we'll make it. And by the way, if
Slava is so understated. He's like, we're gonna walk 9,000 miles, and
they're driving in a small motorhome.
We're gonna meet with like 10 prime ministers, and that's cool, man. That's really intense. It's really interesting.
But that's gonna be a great adventure, and I think what made it possible is actually being distributed. I don't think that would have been possible if we were all in the same office. So this journey that we started as a company a few years ago, I think it pays off, at least in this sense.
At least right now, for this live stream's purposes, it will have paid off. All this hard work finally paid off. I need to figure out what you and Talesh have already figured out somehow, which is you have clients that obviously love you, right? That obviously are working well with you and have found your partnership to be worth it. They'll show up and watch you on this live stream, and somehow they're not criticizing you, saying, why are you on this live stream and you're not doing work on my site? And you're driving to South Africa?
Yeah.
Maybe don't do that. I have a site that you need to maintain. I don't know.
By the way, Ben asked for a status update on a ticket.
I love it. I love it.
Emily said all merchants should have Atwix perform an M2 performance audit on their website. You will learn something about your website you didn't know.
Hey, Emily, you can't say stuff like that because then people will criticize you of being way too biased toward Atwix, which is what people say, the garbage that people are slinging around about me and Something Digital now. So don't go doing that. I don't want you to bring it on yourself, Emily, is what I'm saying. Really,
don't be so biased. So talk about that performance audit a little bit, Slava. We jump around. We're going to jump around. We're going to jump.
Sure.
We're going to jump to Africa. We're going to jump back to performance. What's your process around performance audits and things like that? Like, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, so we have done this for Magento 1 for a while, and then transitioned to Magento 2, kind of applying the same approach and practices. And basically, we have a checklist that we go through and check in both code and configuration, and a little bit on the server side, and also on the from like a store management standpoint, whether you have lots of disabled products maybe which are taking space in the database, but you do not really use them, and they could still slow down the site. We take a brief look at SEO, and like this is just to take a good look at the website. And frankly speaking, for any agency taking over clients from different agencies, or those stores that, let's say, if you take on an existing project, that's a good idea to do this audit, because that lets you see the situation, and when you come up with estimates for further work, they can be based on something, and otherwise you're just working with the black box. So it's a great way to start a relationship, and it's a great and cheap way for the client to see if they like working with the agency, because even on the small engagement with an audit, if it's like even 10-15 hours job, you can already evaluate the speed of communication and talk to your project manager and see if you like that or not. So that's a good way to start. And yeah, I think probably many other agencies go the same way.
Right. Can you do a performance audit on Phillip's performance in the podcast so far? If you were to just give some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. Can you share like how many clients you guys have?
Oh, you can't ask people.
I like to dig in. I like to dig in below the hood. I like to get under the hood. You don't have to answer any of these questions, by the way.
We have tens of clients.
Tens of clients.
Okay. Nice.
I know, because we were situated right next to Atwix. The Something Digital booth was right next to Atwix at Imagine this year. They have quite the following, and if I was keeping count and I had everybody keeping count, let's just be honest, I had everyone basically keep count at the booth. How many lead scans Atwix gets versus Something Digital? It's like 2 to 1. Everybody wants to come see Slava. Really? Everybody loves Slava. Everybody wants to hang out. They had the best swag. They had the most incredible stickers. Look at these stickers, you guys. For real. Look here. It's not even just the stickers that we've talked about at length, but look at this sticker. They got this one. Okay, hold on. Look at this one. That's a great fantastic sticker. Hold on. There's this one.
Mage crab.
Solid.
It's a crab. It's a mage
or
crab.
A bug. Yeah, it depends.
It could be a bug. It might be a crab. It might be a bug. We've got, everything is awesome. Magento Imagine 2018 edition. And then, of course, your favorite and mine. This is the best.
Hey. Oh, dude.
Who makes these? Slava, do you do these while you're driving on the road to South Africa?
We have a really talented team of designers here. So that's their kind of pet project is to make wallpapers, and yeah, we've been releasing wallpapers for 2 years, maybe even more. So we have, I think, over a dozen of them on the blog, and yeah, that's just a project for fun, and for designers, that's just a way to express their talent.
Wow. You really do have a lot of creative folks. I remember some time ago, I think it might have been back in October or so. We had you on the podcast. I think
in Spain.
In Spain, Meet Magento Spain in 2017, most recently. And when we had you on, I said, I've been inspired by Atwix, and I've been visiting the blog there for 5-6 years. I mean, it goes back a lot further than this podcast. And so, I mean, the way that you guys contribute to the community is in so many different ways. I've never heard anyone, Kalen said this before, I've never heard anyone say anything bad about you ever, which is cool. Do people say bad things about you to your face?
Well, I
have a comment from Ben in the chat. He had something bad to say. I'm just kidding.
I have the chat open. You won't trick me. No, but the thing is, we have to compete, being out of Europe, out of Ukraine, and working on the US market, and competing not by price, and trying to work with merchants directly, build the relationships directly. It puts a big demand on us, because in order to stay in this business and be competitive, we have to somehow convince people in the United States that they should work with a distributed agency, which has most of people in Ukraine or around Ukraine, Eastern Europe. So we have to have a clear answer why Atwix. Like, why would you go there if you could go to a local agency and find someone like in your state or even the city? So and coming up with a unique answer to this question is not easy, but that's the only way for us to survive. So that's why we have to push hard.
No, it's funny, because if somebody's, I deal with people that are considering working remotely with different, agencies or individuals, and it's kind of like, if you're going to work remotely, you at least want that remote team to all be in the same place. That's sort of like
the same city or same time zone, or
would help them feel more comfortable. But then if you say, we're out in Europe and we're distributed, that, you must have a really compelling. So what's your answer to why Atwix? Give it to us live.
So we'll have a new answer coming up soon, but for now we can tell about the contributions and our experience with Magento. So the longevity of the relationship, we are partner for 7 years, and we have some decent sites and portfolios, some work to show, some testimonials, and we have our blog, which is a living evidence of the technical competency of the team, because you can go and check almost all of the articles written by our people. We have some guest posts, but that's not more than a few percent. And you can basically vet the experience, verify it. There are comments, and you can see if people say that your solution work or doesn't work. And but now we are stepping into contributions, and I think I can share the next challenge we have is getting everyone in the company certified with as a Magento solution specialist. So our big target is to have 100% of people at Atwix as Magento.
That's a cool idea.
Specialist. So even for developers, you would say that why go for solution specialist certification if they have a certification for themselves? But I think it's important to have this business component, and understanding Magento from merchant standpoint, from user standpoint as a developer, and not looking at it just as some code is important to deliver solutions efficiently. So that's the next big target, and maybe we'll be the first agency to do this in the world.
That's fantastic. I'm literally tweeting that out right now.
I'd be really surprised if Creativity doesn't already have that program in full effect, because Jenna Warren is probably the largest proponent of the solution specialist exam And I agree. It's super important that everybody in a company, even developers, understand the materiality of the kinds of things that we're working with and the sort of challenges that merchants have to think about and face every day. So it's really interesting. Yeah.
What's going on?
Keep going, Phillip. I'm literally live tweeting. You gotta, yeah, you've got the gift of gab. So
no, it's Slava's our guest. So Slava, there was a retrospective that Magento did on the blog about you that I was checking out. It was sort of covering a bunch of things. So covers a sort of digital nomad lifestyle, but I think it also sort of covers like how you even came to get into Magento yourself. Do you have a little bit of that story?
Yeah. So I started doing different things, trying to make money as a kid in Ukraine, and I came like it all started from an HTML book I found in school, like a thin 20-pager, and by that time I was playing with Basic and the other programming languages where you have to compile the code and run it. And then I try HTML. I see that you can see the results instantly, and that was quite fascinating. You could put them online, and everybody could see them. That was I don't know, around the year 2000, and so I started to try and find a way to make money with that, trying to find local clients, and eventually coming upon freelance websites, starting to freelance for the Western countries, and that's how it naturally grew into an agency. And we were doing OS commerce at first, and then switched to Magento at some point, obviously, as that was the best platform at the time.
Yeah,
so that's the short story.
Nice.
And still is the best platform now.
By the way, Eric said he's had one of your Magento desktops backgrounds for a long time. And Mark Lewis, props to a technical agency founder. Igor Polchakuk, great show, guys. Chris Harry.
That's our designer. So let's shout out to Igor. Igor is our designer, the one who made the t-shirt illustration. Yeah, Igor Polchakuk.
Igor, I'm going to give you a virtual hug right now.
Trust me, virtual hugs from Kalen don't mean a whole lot. They're usually followed up with, "Hey man, you said you were going to give me X, Y, or Z, and you didn't, and now I'm mad at you," or something. That's my experience, over here. That's just
Chris Harry, our audio master, podcast master, and then Igor said we should create a T-shirt. I've survived Magento certification. I'm down with that. That works for me. That's a great idea.
Kalen likes making T-shirts right now. He likes it way more than he actually is good at selling them, but he likes making them a lot.
I'm trying to get Mark. I keep tweeting out ideas to Mark, but he's just kind of dropping them. He's like, whatever. These aren't good ideas. This is no code freezes coming level T-shirt idea. But
he's seen the better of your ideas. These are all sloppy seconds at this point, really.
But no, I mean, I think that it's interesting that just that consistency that you've had over the years. The artwork is like a fun thing, but it makes you guys unique. It shows your personality, and then the blog, you put time into that, and just over time, that's all really built up and built your reputation over time.
I got to ask you, what was your experience? Coming from the OS commerce world and the Magento one, what was it like trying to transition your company to Magento 2 and, and then, certified solution partner and, having to play by those rules? And do you feel like that was, what was that like for your company?
I mean, gaining the expertise between M1 and M2
right.
Yeah, so we actually massively took the course that Magento was offering, which was the requirement to be a Magento 2 certified Magento 2 trained partner.
Right.
So you had to deliver a certain number of courses completed by your team members. So we went with the Magento U courses, and that was a good start. But at that point, the courses were based on 2.0 or some beta versions of Magento 2, and by the time that we took them, that was already a little bit outdated, and we had to look at things. But it's basically we were trying to figure out it by ourselves, and using a little bit of documentation and working on projects, trying to do something. We also developed a few extensions, also as a way to learn the platform better. So we put one of those on the marketplace, the rich snippets, and we had a few others that are not on the marketplace because we cannot really support them and keep updating them with every new Magento version. But that was a nice pet project that allowed us to gain some experience.
And now you're as a Magento, what level of solution partner are you guys?
Professional.
So professional solution partner. I mean, you're having to, you have to build many sites a year, and you have to continue to grow that portion of your business, and that's a that's a lot of work. It should be commended. I mean, you've got no shortage of partners out there in the EU that are also that are right in that same boat. I was joking with somebody the other day that I thought that there's if you go on Wikipedia, the Ukrainian citizenship exam is that you either have to be a natural born citizen or you have to be natural born in the Ukraine to be a citizen, or you have to be naturalized and then you have to live there for 5 years. Or if you're a Magento developer, you can be, it's a little known fact, 13% of Ukrainians have worked on the Magento core at some point, or work for a solution partner.
I'm not entirely sure whether you're joking or not. I'm pretty sure you're joking.
Yeah. I'm totally joking, but it seems like that sometimes. So there's no shortage of talent. There's no shortage of other agencies that are trying to take talent from you. There's no, that's got to be so maybe that's one way to sort of hedge against that competition there that's regional too, that and US partners that are trying to hire people in Ukraine away from you. There's maybe having a distributed team helps in that respect, and that they're not all just in one office in one in one location in Kyiv that are everybody's trying to poach from everybody else.
Well, actually, it hurts, I think, in this sense, because if you're distributed, like there are some group of people that they would not work remotely, and they would not go and work for a US agency remotely. But in our case, we teach people how to work remotely, and like everyone at Atwix has to be able to do that, and which makes all of our people 100% kind of in theory ready to work for any agency in the world. So we have to compete for people on a global scale from one side, and we also have to, but the market we sell on is not here. So we have to sell on the US market, and at the same time, our resources are also available for the US partners. So the situation is
you're training your folks to eventually go work for someone else. Right?
Well, luckily that doesn't happen, but right. But in theory that's possible. So it's it's a tricky situation.
I've never seen any Atwix people looking. I'll say that. How do you? First of all, I'm curious what like your average tenure is. How long people stick around. Phillip doesn't like me asking any of these questions.
I feel like they're competitive battle card questions.
No,
where. Yes, absolutely. When you're selling against, like I were selling against Atwix, which I don't, but if I were, Ben, by the way, Ben, give me a call, cabinets.com. No, I'm just kidding. But if I were, then I'd be like the average tenure of someone, he said it on this podcast, they only stay there for 2-3 years. I mean, like, do you really want that kind of a person working on your show? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's usually something.
You're in that hiring mindset, so these are
the things I think about. But I mean, Slava obviously has been able to retain people, and so I'm assuming it's going to be a good number. You don't have to answer that question. This is a very combative interview. We're trying to make it fun. But the other question is
just between the hosts. That's it. It's just
just between the hosts. Yeah, everything's totally cool with Slava. But the other question is, how do you retain talent? Like, how do you how do you incentivize people and work to retain your talent?
Yeah. So to the first question, we don't keep like the exact statistics for the average tenure, but we have people working with Atwix for longer than the brand exists. So before Atwix, we were called a different name when we were still doing OS commerce, and we still have at least a few guys who are still with us from back then. So it's over 9 years, I think. So
that's incredible. See, I told you, Philip, you'd have something very flattering, a very flattering response to that. Called it.
And yeah, I'm really grateful for those guys because it's obviously having that kind of experience. They can jump into any other company like this. But still, I'm really proud that they have found their reasons to keep up with Atwix, stay with Atwix, and develop with us. And at the same time, I think it's normal when people leave because the company grows. We went from 1 to 3 people to 30, and obviously that involves changes in the processes, and it opens up new opportunities, but also the organization changes. So if you would like to work in a small company with 5 or 10 people, that's not possible in a bigger team. So naturally, some people would leave, and that's part of the process. But to answer your questions on what we do to retain people is basically, I think there is
you just whip them.
Yeah, frequently. But that's one thing. But another one is I think every company is different. Maybe not every company. There is maybe a similar group, and then there are different companies, but they're just different. So there is no two same companies. There is no other company, I think, that would offer like the exact same mix of what we have. And we, of course, offer the flexibility, freedom, and of being distributed. And we're quite flexible in the working process. And at the same time, we have this sense of community. Even though we distributed, we have a few times a year the company-wide gatherings. So we just had one a week ago. In mountains in Ukraine, so we pay everybody to come, and no matter where you are, we will fly you or drive you to this place, and we all gather together for 3 days. We have a day of bar camp where we ask people to share their knowledge, make presentations, and that's also an opportunity for people to gain. For some of them, I would say for majority of the people, they would gain their first time speaking experience in a safe environment with their colleagues. So they can try to present and not be afraid that they'll do it in a bad way, or they'll get judgment from the audience and so on. And that's just like one thing. But the other, I think the devil is in the details. So we try to just make work as much comfortable as it is possible. So starting from the tools you use, like chairs, even if you work remotely, we would buy the best chair, like
I thought you were going to say you
Miller Aaron or something like that.
so that they couldn't get too comfortable.
And of course the tools, like the MacBooks, everything. So it's and that's kind of the philosophy that we follow, just to have fun while we work and not just concentrate on making money, but just make sure that people are happy and we just have fun.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's so much more than, there's so much that goes into building an awesome culture at a company. I mean, Phillip, at SD, you guys have
No, we're not allowed to talk about SD. People, we're biased against something digital, and I'm hearing from more and more people that that's the case. So, we're not allowed to talk about that.
I heard from 2 people, I think the last week. You know who you are if you're watching. They're like, "What's up?"
Oh, they're in this chat. Oh, I didn't know that. Now I'm mining the chat to see who it was.
I don't know if they are. They're not. They haven't chatted. That are like, yeah, man, Phillip is talking about SD too much or whatever. But he actually works really hard to keep it neutral. So. Anyways,
when Kalen sends me a DM, he's like, I'm hearing from more and more people that they're not happy about you talking about something digital. And I'm like, who are they? I need names. I need a list. Also, I hope you defended me, Kalen.
Right.
And he's nah, I didn't really.
Yeah, I did.
You are talking 100%. A lot about something digital. So. But it's okay. This one particular podcast can be biased against Atwix. That's fine.
Yeah,
no one will ever
absolutely.
complain about that. That'll be fine.
But Phillip, like on the topic of culture and things like that, and retaining the talent, what are your thoughts there? Here we go again. What's like SD's take on that?
So this is how you answer that kind of question. You say no comment. No, here's the true answer. When you pay competitive salaries and people are doing work they like and they feel like they're growing in their career and they're achieving their personal goals in their life, then you never have a problem retaining talent. Like you never have a problem because people are happy, right? Like if we can create like an environment where people feel like they're being challenged and they're growing, they're doing the work that they want to do and they're getting paid really well for that, then they'll stick around for a long, long time. It's when those things start to fail, right? When you have challenges like I'm dealing with, difficult people, or I'm not being, I don't feel like I'm growing, or I have all my other friends are doing really cool work and I'm having to slog through all this garbage, and even then, like there might be stuff that you put up with that's not ideal, right? Like there's still things in any organization. It doesn't matter how awesome Atwix or something digital is, or even, Magento. I mean, it doesn't matter what company it is that you work for. It's going to have its issues. It's how we respond to those things and how open we are to criticism and how open we are to listen to feedback. And if there's one thing I can say about the ownership at SD, it's that they are 100% genuine. They are in front of clients the exact way that they are behind closed doors. I hear people, and I cannot tell you how often that has not been the case for me in my professional life, where there's always a line on like, where it's like, how are we going to sell this? Like, how do we, they just want to tell the truth. And one of the pillars of Something Digital's culture is saying, like, never put off a hard conversation. That's a thing that we say all the time. Never put off a hard conversation. There will be hard conversations. And if we,
no wonder you have so many hard conversations with me.
Yeah, I've learned that. My wife's also trained me in that regard. So, but I think it's important that we are open about our shortcomings, that we're open to hearing people give feedback. And it's not just us, right? Like companies that have really great corporate culture do this really, really well. Like somebody asked this question. I was at MailChimp a week ago, and one of the founders of MailChimp did like a little like on-site tour of their Atlanta Midtown, or the Pond City Market facility, and they have like 700 people that work there in that one particular building, and they were saying, what's that group over there? And it's like, oh, that's 14 new people. We onboard between 14 and 20 new hires every single Monday. And when you're adding 40, 50 people a month to a company, how do you, the question was, how do you retain the culture? How do you retain the feel of the company when you're adding in that many folks? Right. And he's like, you don't. The most surefire way to ruin a culture in a company is to try to control it. It's out of your control. You can't do anything you didn't do anything to start it, and you can't do anything to keep it. The culture is defined by the people that work in the company. And if the only thing you can exercise control over is making sure that the people that are coming into the mix are bringing diverse ideas and opinions and bringing their experience to the table and doing it in a way that's not toxic to the rest of the people around them. And if you are excellent at that, everything else works itself out.
Well said. Jeez, man.
But I guess, Phillip, it's not, well, it's in people essentially, but what matters a lot is what kind of processes do you have and how do you react to certain things. So I think it's possible to manage the culture, like to influence it or change it. Of course, it's influenced or changed by people, like even if that's the owner of the company or the management, but it's possible to transition from one way things are going in the company to another one.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. Like you can ruin it by having, you can have toxic things happen inside of a company, or there might be processes that are so inefficient that drive people away. I mean, for a long time at SD, people didn't want to enter timesheets because the actual system in which we entered them was it was tough, and it was time consuming in and of itself. But as a professional service organization, we bill for people's time. It's a necessary evil. So we had to creatively tackle those types of problems, not saying that like a developer should be dictating to accounts payable what kind of accounting system we use, right? Rather we need to work with the company to figure out what we can provide, like as developers, that are solutions that allow us to self-service ourselves, so people aren't quitting because they hate timesheets. So I agree with you. There are processes, there are tools, it's giving people the power to be able to get their job done and what's expected of them, and do it in a way that they actually feel like they're being fulfilled. And it's not soul sucking.
Yeah. By the way, questions are starting to pour in. I'm so proud of you, dear listeners. We've been talking swag, joking about salsa dancing. You're finally starting to ask some actual questions, which is fantastic. So I've got a few queued up here. This one's from Eric Hallman. Now that Ukraine is becoming more and more expensive for hiring, are you expanding out to other regions? What's sort of the new and up and coming Ukraine, in air quotes, so to speak?
Yeah, I think Ukraine still is #1, and there is no alternative for the Magento talent, especially for us, because we have this advantage of being local and understanding people, culture, and having experience on how to hire and how to run it. Yes, it's becoming more expensive, but
and 13% of all citizens are Magento core developers. So that's
right. But anyway, we're already on the global market for talent. So and still we think that Ukraine is competitive for that. It's a question of what do you offer to people anyway, and but we are open to any country. Essentially, it's not only Ukraine. We have people from Belarus, Slovakia, Moldova. So it's more or less in the same region, but yeah, it's different markets.
Nice. And then question from Gene Kano. I had a question for you, Slava. I always wondered, how do you pronounce your full name? I've also wondered that. How do you pronounce your full name that starts with a V?
Yeah, that's Vyacheslav Kravchuk.
That's a baller name. I love that. So baller.
Kalen, I want to hear you say it. Say it, Kalen.
Vyacheslav Kravchuk. Wait, what's the last name? Vyacheslav Kravchuk.
Yes, you just sound like people from these movies, the US movies, when they try to hire the US actor to be in the Russian military role, and they would say, yeah.
Let me try again. Vyacheslav Kravchuk.
Yes, great.
That's fine. All right. Question from Mark Lewis. Slava, how do you manage work-life balance while traveling and working at the same time? Do you ever take actual vacations where you travel without working, kind of a thing?
Yeah, so I think that's it's not possible to define a work-life balance, because for better or worse, I have no experience of working anywhere for hire. So I was never an employee of any company except for a few days at what was it called, the Hardee's, the fast food restaurant in the US. And then they let me go, and after a few days, because of $10 short in the cash register.
What?
Yeah, that was part of the student exchange program.
Phillip will get mad at me if I ask you whether you actually stole the $10 or not. He'll make it fast.
Oh my god!
No, I was offering them to put the $10 back, but they said no. The process is we put you on the minimum wage, and we have to start investigation and so on. So yeah, that was quite an experience. But yeah, back to the question. So I was always having this kind of lifestyle. So this work is already part of the life, and I don't know how to separate it. And I'm fine with that. But the question about the vacation, yeah, it's possible for me to disconnect for some period of time. And that's something I had to make sure before heading off to Africa, because there, at some period of time, I might not have internet for a week or two, and the infrastructure and the company have to be ready for that. And I'm confident that it is. And the key to that is having a great team of people. So thanks to some people who are in the company for over 5, 6, 7 years. They know it really well, and those are the people who are behind the day-to-day operations, and that's they are Atwix, and that's how we deliver the results. So
Nice.
everything is already there. I'm not like somebody who's involved in every single thing and needed every minute urgently. So I can step away for a week or two if needed. That's a big blessing.
How much do you work overall, like hours per week or whatever? Like,
I don't bill time. Don't bill my time to clients, so I don't have to record
no, but
it.
just
so
roughly, like,
it's
just
hard
roughly,
to tell,
like, yeah.
But roughly,
he needs a number. He needs a number, Slava. Just give him a number.
Yeah, basically the whole day on and off. But I really don't know, Kalen, how to answer this. Do
I think it's an important question
consider
in the
work,
context.
And if you think
context
about work, is it work or not?
Yeah, I mean, in the context of work-life balance, I think it's an important thing. You know, there's a lot of discussion around mental health and things like that. So I think, I think we should think about how much we're working or not working. And
I think that the number is not important here. What's important is ability to disconnect when you feel like that. So if you are tired, it's important to be able to call it a day and start tomorrow. And of course, that might not always be possible if you have tight deadlines. But I think not putting yourself into that situation too much where you have to, when you're overloaded and it's basically more than you can handle, that's the key. So just being able to not work when you really don't want to work, that's the way to manage that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the idea that the perfect work-life balance can be achieved with a certain number. I think my sense would be that someone could feel overwhelmed with 20 hours with a 20-hour a week schedule. It depends on what it is you're doing, right? And I mean, I think it's no secret that in the Western world, with a 40-hour work week being sort of standard, the idea that we're 100% productive during that 40 hours, I think everybody knows is not right. It's not. That's an ideal that is very rarely met. So I think, it's about being productive when you're most productive. And I think that a distributed or remote work culture actually is that's emerging and is becoming more acceptable, and a lot more businesses are investing in, actually plays to the strengths of helping people to achieve work-life balance by allowing them the flexibility to work on the schedule that allows them to be most productive during the hours of the day they feel most productive. And but at the same time, yes, Kalen, I totally agree with that. And that from a mental health perspective, you should be, it's hard to turn off when your work is always with you wherever you are. And there's always a pressure there to continue to, to get just a little bit more done. So I actually think that's a really astute question.
Yeah, like I'm always, curious about, like, especially people that are very effective, and also like Slava, you strike me as being sort of very like calm and like chilled out, and I think that's a great balance, and so I think that I like to learn from people that have figured out the work-life balance thing. Maybe they're a little further ahead than I am, and so yeah,
I think it's also different in different countries. And the US has a reputation of being the workaholic country, and you guys have in general much more stress than
mostly because of Phillip. He basically skews this entire country all on his own.
Yeah, and life in US is probably more stressful overall than it is in Europe. So there is a higher pressure for financial output. You need to pay bills and loans and everything. While in Ukraine, for example, because that's the thing. So the economy is quite weak. So if you want to get a loan for a car or a mortgage, the interest rate would be crazy. That would be like 20% or 25% in local currency. So just imagine like 20% loan. So nobody takes that in a good, in sane mind, nobody would do that. So people have to save and then buy. But that's also like it delays the gratification, but it also removes this pressure of having to pay for your interest payment. So on average, I think, at least talking about our company, people who work at Atwix, I don't think anybody is paying off their flat or paying off their car. They just save and buy it. And yeah, so that makes the whole perspective very different. So if you lose a job, for example, you're not worried about that because you can basically survive months and months, and that would not hurt you much. And it's the same in other European countries for different reason. In Germany, for example, or somewhere else, you have this unemployment payments, which would help you for, I don't know, half a year or a year. But in Ukraine, maybe you don't get that, but you just save money because cost of life is not that high. And being in Magento industry, the salary you get is very good. So comparing to average citizen of Ukraine, you might be making 10 times more money than they are. So which makes it really easy to live here.
Right. And the social, I mean, those are good social programs that here in the United States we call entitlements, which is said in a bad way. Like it's not said in a good
yeah.
I'm becoming more and more socialist with every passing day.
I can't. Definitely. Yes, you are. I don't know how. Like I don't know who you are anymore. Actually,
how did Texas do that to me? Right?
It's weird because you went from like ultra conservative in a blue state to sort of center leaning in a red state. I would love to see what would happen to you if you moved to like North Korea. I just want to see what happens. I just want to know.
But that's not socialism.
That would
curious. Like what would happen?
Make for some, and the great thing is that would make for some great live stream content.
Oh,
which is the whole name.
Except they don't have internet out there.
Yeah. Kalen's live stream would be like, and we're gonna feed the whole nation with a rabbit program. We're gonna be breeding rabbits. We're all eating rabbits. I can see he's like totally bought into the whole idea of the North Korea. I have no idea what the heck I'm talking about right now. What I love about Slava's answer too, though, is I do think that, you know, in the United States we are saddled in many ways with social pressures that require us to have things like, you know, car payments, and we wind up having student loan payments, and we have all that. We have very similar, like those are the things that naturally lead you into having to have the stresses of jobs you don't like, and that definitely is there. But you said that we were stressed out, and I have to say, like, can you blame us? Have you seen what's happening in our government lately? I think we finally understand what a lot of Europe was going through for a long time with the stresses of the
yeah, everything old but new again. Navarre said he was just joking with his wife. I'm getting more liberal as I get older. When I'm 60, I'm going to be a full-on communist. And Eric is saying it's interesting, you know, how much of a debt culture that we have in the U.S. We start thousands of dollars in debt by the time we're 18, 19.
Yeah, that's a cliche, but I think it's important to be able to step away a little bit and look at that in the long-term perspective. So whatever government you have, it doesn't matter in 100 years or 50 years. And I know we are not going to live that long, but if you look at the history, as you know, it repeats itself. And what was going on in the world for the last 100 years, there were much more horrible things. And what we can learn is that we are just never tend to be happy. Whatever goes on, we will always find reasons to not be happy about it. Or but in fact, those external things, they should not be taken the best of us, and we just need to be able to look at it in a calm way.
I really appreciate that sort of reasonable approach and outlook. I think a lot of it, what I'm learning, and you have an adventurous sort of life, right? But what I'm learning is the things that I'm starting to value and prize don't require stuff, and it doesn't require stuff that I would otherwise care about. Like I could very easily envision a world in which I don't need a television. I don't need, home internet access. I don't need Netflix. I don't need any of that stuff because I'm too busy out seeing the world. I'm running, I'm hiking, I'm taking my kids to the park. Like, I'm living outside and doing things that require me to engage with the world that's outside of the home that I have. We need bigger homes when all we do is live inside of them. If you're outside and you're experiencing the world, and you're like, your sense of what you need changes dramatically. Like,
Exactly.
I need nothing more than my running shoes for me to have a really good time. I'm dead serious. And I know it's weird to hear me say that. Like, that's not who I used to be, but I totally get that now.
We should both get some tiny houses. 2019, the Magetalk Tiny House Challenge. Get rid of the big old houses.
Okay, that's it. It's happening. Like,
it's happening.
We're doing it. We're gonna have a Magetalk Tiny House with a live stream going 24/7. It's gonna be like the real world. You and I are gonna be yelling at each other. It's gonna be fun.
Pivoting a little bit back to Magento agency world stuff. 2 questions. One is I get the sense that you guys, I think you mentioned it, trying to get direct relationships with end clients, with merchants. Like, what's your split between, doing work through other agencies and doing work directly with end clients? And then the other question I got asked recently from somebody, I think it was in Eastern Europe somewhere, was like, hey, how do I break into the US market? How do I get clients and things like that? And so if you could help out your potential competitors here for a minute, how would you advise like a younger agency that's just starting out? Like, what have you done to build those relationships and get those great clients in US and Europe and things like that?
So I'd say that the majority of the work comes directly. So we don't really we have a bit of the agency work, but that's not like the very significant part of the business. So we do business directly with the merchants. And answering your questions on how to get to the US market, that's a bit difficult to answer, I guess, because I don't think we are experts in this, because I think we don't have a strong sales competence in the company. So that's our weakest part, is actually sales. And the majority of the business we get it from inbound requests and word of mouth, blog also. But I think actually the blog was one of the pillars that helped us at the beginning, and maybe still keeps helping, because we get a lot of traffic there. And while it's mostly technical people, developers, and the country number one is India, of course, but still there are some CTOs here and there coming there. And I think it's important to first understand the market, and to understand the market, you need to be there from time to time at least. So it's important to go to the conferences, go to your clients. But if you don't have clients in the US yet and you're looking to get some, then probably going into the conferences, speaking to people is the way to go. Or maybe partner up with another US agency just to gain some experience on how things work in the US if you don't have this expertise, and then build it little by little. I don't have any quick answers, the answers that would lead you to a quick success overnight, because our story was slowly, but steadily developing. And maybe that's not the recipe for everyone, because normally when people ask me here in Ukraine also this kind of questions, they tend to just look at the numbers and say, okay, how do we quickly grow to 70 or 100 people agency? Or they ask me, okay, why are still just 30 people? And then I have to explain that we are in different kind of business, because if you're doing outstaffing like most of the agencies in this part of the world, it just works differently. You get a client who comes to you and say, okay, we need a team of 5 people, just sell me the bodies, and we call them here body shops, or the galleys where people sit in rows. So that's the local metaphor. And so that's one business. And to have 100 or 200 people company like that is possible to do quickly. But if you're really looking to build an agency, you need to really invest into relationships with your clients, and that's something that you cannot really scale really easily. You need to be with them, you need to understand them, talk to them, and be a friend to your clients, and really genuinely try to get into their shoes and be their friend in a sense that you are really giving them the best answers for them, not looking for a short-term gain for yourself or the agency, but really working for them. But that's a slow way, but that's
I mean, I think it's super impressive that you have so much direct business. And but what you're saying, it's very simple. Start a blog, put out quality content for 5-6 years, and you'll be good to go. Piece of cake. Sounds
in the process, you have to make sure that the business you get it gets done in a good way. So you keep your clients, and that's I think also another thing is that we focus on long-term relationships and ongoing development and support. While I know for many agencies that's not the way, because and I can understand them, because Magento wants you to sell licenses, and the only way you can do this is getting the new clients. But then you have to either get rid of the old ones or somehow scale insanely quickly, and neither of those ways are for us. So we want to keep the clients we have for years and years, and that's what we do. So we have to take the other path.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's something I think about. Me and Phillip have talked about, you know, fixed bid, you know, type work and new builds and things like that versus kind of maintenance retainer work. And I think that's definitely a smart path to take. But yeah, I mean, a lot of solutions partners that are really wanting to grow aggressively and things like that are, you know, taking a little bit more risk. I mean, Phillip knows all about that. And
I know all about taking more risk.
But no, just that, you know, you know, doing lots of big builds and things like that, and racking up those partner points and everything.
Well, what I think is interesting is that again, if you look at the incentive, you mentioned partner points, so it's the last thing I thought of. But if you look at the incentive is if I'm going to get points for a particular type of a build, right, or for a build at all, and not necessarily based on the scale or the size or complexity, am I incentivized to try to, you know, get those, you know, big, you know, 2,000, 3,000 hour, 4,000 hour builds that, you know, are going to occupy a good portion of my team? Or should I be trying to productize a smaller feature set into an accelerator that will allow me to, you know, service more people horizontally and do smaller builds? It's about where the incentive is, you know, I think you need both. And I think it takes a different type of expertise to be able to build much larger sites. It takes a very different level of expertise. And I think it takes a different type of expertise to build smaller sites too. They both have their challenges. So you do need both. I think a well-rounded company has both.
Absolutely.
But you can't just go after, I think just going after one type of a client is a possibility for some companies, but I don't know how you scale your business that way. Like, you have to be a lot of things to a lot of people. And that's why at SD, like, I'm spending, you know, the middle part of this year really scaling up our vertical specific marketing. Like, we do a lot of footwear. We don't talk a whole lot about the footwear, you know, stuff we're doing, but we should. But it doesn't mean I stop talking about accessibility, right? Just because I write ebooks now about footwear and the challenges that, you know, people that sell shoes online might have, and the 7 or 8 clients that we have that sell footwear and the things we've learned from that, you know, the 10 or 12 builds we've done that are in the footwear category. Like, those are, just because I'm writing about that doesn't mean it's to the detriment of everything else. I'm not just focusing on one thing. And I think that's what's gonna make. Yeah.
I love the idea of you like talking about footwear and stuff, just because it's something that you're so genuinely into, as a consumer. And like, I think that's such I just think that's fun. Like, I'd love to see that content or video, you know, whatever. Like,
Let me show you my really Pharrells that I have on today while we're talking. Hold on. Check this out.
See, I don't even know what that means. That's how you know.
See, you have to talk here. So check this out. These are my Adidas Pharrells. I'm pretty excited about them.
That's fantastic.
They came out back in February. They don't have Boost. They don't have Ultra Boost or anything like that. It's not a super fancy shoe. They're not a Yeezy. Right. I didn't spend $300-$400. Hey, you said you would like me to talk about this stuff. You got it now.
I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it, man. The shoes. Yeah. Speaking of clothing, Joel is saying that I should get a big cowboy hat with a big M on it and a really big belt buckle. I'm totally into that. That could be my new shtick with my videos. And then we got some questions coming in. I promise I did not plant these questions. Okay. Question from Bert on Cloud. He's asking, do you ever launch clients on Enterprise Cloud Edition, or do you always license Enterprise and handle all the deployments yourself?
Yes, we work on cloud as well.
Short and sweet. Okay. I think he's starting to get your training, Phillip. I think he's starting to get the gist of it. Nice. Okay, and then Mark Lewis, very similar question. What are your thoughts on Magento Cloud Edition? He's going to give him the one-word answer.
Is this the time I can say no comments, or?
Yeah. All right. That works. By the way, Emily is getting in on the Tiny House Challenge, which I'm excited about.
So because Pranav is furiously writing a tweet right now, I'm going to head him off at the pass and remind him and remind all of you guys that the people that stuck with Magento when it was having growing pains are the ones who profited the most in the end, because they're the ones who helped guide the future of the product. And I think we all have done that, right? So what's a little pain, right? It's going to be worth it. And like, we can all have conjecture. We all have our own thoughts about things. I mean, there's stuff I don't like. I've some people like absolutely hate with a passion and actively evangelize that Unergy is the worst company ever to live and they should all die
because of the encryption,
fiery depths, because they will not and cannot and absolutely refuse to ever remove the IonCube encryption. And I'm over here like, well, then I'll just have a better product that I can launch for my customers. And if they don't want it, then we don't use it. But if the customers will allow us to use it, it's going to make things better for them. It's one tool in your tool belt. Why is everybody getting all upset about one tool? If that's the only tool you have, like, just use the tool to the best of your ability. But who cares? Like, who cares that you like a ball peen hammer? It's probably not the best hammer to use. Just you go do you. You go do you.
I think your analogies are falling apart a little bit.
They are, but you know what I'm saying is it's one tool. Like, and it's like, who cares if someone has an opinion about that tool? Like, since when do you care what people's opinions are, Kalen? Nobody cares.
Yeah, I can.
I want to say more, but I shan't. But
I saw Mark typed something, and it now says "message retracted." So, yeah, no, I mean, totally. I mean, there's definitely, and one of the things that was clear to me was that I was hearing things from people, and I was talking about things that I'd heard, I think, prior to 2.2 or whatever. And so some of those, so some of those growing pains have been resolved and improved, and I'm sure they'll continue to improve. And I do totally see how cloud is very strategic to Magento's long-term goals.
You've got a lot of smart people that are building on cloud, right? Like, I'm insulted when people are like, don't you know? Like, yeah, like, do you think I'm an idiot? Like, you think Atwix is a bad company because they're building on cloud? Like, you got to know what you like. There's a whole world out there. It's like saying that just because we build on cloud. I don't know. I hate this argument so much. Like, I don't even want to talk about this, but it's a thing now. But it's like, we've got clients on Mage Mojo. We're actively sending people to Mage Mojo. Does that mean that we only ever build on Mage Mojo? Right? And like, oh, you heard Stratus had that one problem that one time. It's like, I don't know. It's just like things that just never, like, conversations that never have any resolution, that like bucket you into one way of delivering. And I deliver all kinds of different ways. It sounds like Slava does too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The serious answer is that you have to pick the tool you need for a specific purpose. So for some kind of builds, the cloud is not 100% for everyone, but it has its application and the use case, and when it makes sense to use them, why not? And they have, moreover, now the starter package as well, so which is kind of affordable way for merchants to start without paying too much, and it's not much more expensive than the regular license. So it's can be some cost savings in the end. So why not? And it's a living product, and Magento is working on it. And just remember, like, let's rewind 2 years maybe back or so. And do you remember the time when people were seriously like Magento 2 was already out, but people were seriously considering forking M1 to like take over Magento 1?
Phillip remembers.
And build something on top of it.
And randos on GitHub.
And not just that, but like there was a huge discussion, like whether should we start a site on Magento 1 or Magento 2 now. And look now, like, is there anybody having a question when they're looking to build a new site or migrate to Magento? Is there anybody still asking the question whether they should go with Magento 1 or Magento 2? I didn't hear this for the last year or so from anybody. So the same thing with cloud. There is some period that the product should take to measure a little bit, and yeah, Magento is working on it, and our job is to make sure that we deliver the concerns we have to Magento and let them work on them. Right. But yeah, it's just a different product. It's not the same as Magento community, Magento open source. So yes, you cannot really have that much flexibility, but it has its own advantages.
What Mark Lewis said, I think the cloud issue is a lack of transparency, which is perfectly illustrated by partner silence on the topic. What I think is a challenge there is that I'm not a partner, haven't been a partner. There, you guys are partners. When you are partners, like, you don't want to criticize publicly, not because of because as a bad, like me and Phillip are partners. We're partners on a podcast. Am I going to go around criticizing him? Well, yes, most of the time, yes. But in theory, like, am I going to go around criticizing him versus taking that to him privately and working it out? But like, how does that extrapolate to the wider community? Because there's people like me, there's people like Mark, there's the broader Magento community.
Mark Lewis, you're talking about, who asked who put the thing into the chat.
Yeah, there's the broader group community that isn't in the partner program that feels, like so we can't hear anything, or we're not a part. Are we part of the conversation or not? Like, I honestly didn't think I was going to hear anything at all. I get like 30 views on most of my videos and no comment. And then this one kind of popped off. And so I think that's the, because, and Aaron with Classy Llama said it too. He's like, look, we've been giving this feedback. We've been giving feedback to Magento the last 2 years. It's happening. We get it. At the same time, we're all trying to run our businesses. We're all trying to move things forward. We're all trying to make progress. Progress is being made. But I think those of us that are outside of the partner program are the ones that feel like, a little grief about, like the question of transparency. Like, should there be perfect transparency? You guys have a partner relationship, like, or, some things are private.
Okay. Like, let me give you an example. Right? Magento 2, right? The first year of Magento 2, that was pretty touch and go. There was a lot of people, including like Yoav Kuttner himself, who was, taking every opportunity to crap on Magento, right? And so you have people like Paul Bovair and Alan Kent that come on Magetalk and they talk about, how great Magento 2 is, and we're investing heavily in architecture, and look at all this R&D we're doing. We've hired all these people, and this is not something that's going to end. We're continuing to invest in Magento 2. And then what happens? Magento 2.1 comes out, and they're like, we fixed all the problems in Magento 2. Well, you just told me for a year that there's no problems, right? Like, I don't understand the rationale of this idea of transparency. Like, if you had perfect transparency, you wouldn't have a product. If I knew what went into actually, like, what actually goes into most of the things I interact with every day, I wouldn't use them, Like nobody really they say they want that. They don't really want it. Because what happens is it builds distrust, because all the waffling for all the times that Magento has changed the name of Page Builder or has changed the name of analytics to RJ Metrics, like whatever, like think about the 15,000 conversations that happened internally. And if all of that was perfectly transparent, don't you think that we'd get a sense of distrust of Magento over some time?
Yeah.
Like you don't trust them anymore. Like
you can't. Yeah,
they don't even like their own product. That's what people would be saying there. Like
you can't have perfect transparency. We think of transparency as like always a good thing, but no, like is there perfect like certain things are not. Like, I have a business, Commerce Hero. There's a lot of things that are private. When I put a candidate's info out, it's all masked, it's all private.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that's right. I think though, as an open source community, there's a different expectation. And my gut, like, do you guys feel like maybe things were more transparent, let's say, however many years ago when it was first getting started and the founding team was doing it and the forums were going crazy? Like, was it more transparent then? Is it less transparent? Is it more enterprisey, or is it really the same? It's always been the same level of transparency.
I mean, Matt Mullenweg going absolutely bananas, or not Matt Mullenweg, that's the WordPress guy. What's the guy? Matt Menjarek going bananas publicly in a spat with Colin Mollenauer. Like that right there should tell you everything you need to know about, Magento not owning up to mistakes that it makes. Like that is just, it's a thing that happens with companies, in that you have to be, it's a nature of the beast with a company. And I remember the re-architecture back in the old days from 1.3 to 1.4, and how sales finally stopped being a EAV and went to a flat table structure. Like nobody ever actually owned the fact that they made an architecture mistake in the beginning. It was like, oh, we're going to make this better. And then it was, oh, it's faster. Oh, we're more stable than ever. Right. And they re-architected themes too. I don't think there's ever been truly an ownership of a bad decision that was made. They learned from this, like you call them a mistake. It's just like you're facing new challenges every day and you learn from them, but to call them just like straight up mistakes, I don't know if I'd call them mistakes. I mean,
I think Slava is
not a cloud hosting company. They're learning to be one, and I don't know. Sorry, go ahead, Slava. I didn't realize.
Yeah, actually, there are two points I think that are also important. One is the understanding the competition and where Magento is. So, just like the conversation we had earlier between you and Kalen about asking questions and asking an agency some questions that can be used against them. So we have to understand that Magento is a company which is kind of really targeted by competitors, and whatever Magento says can be used against them, and they have to be really careful in their public communication. So that a little bit complicates the strategy they have, because they have lots of factors to consider before they say anything. They're not like a small business that can just be whatever they are and completely transparent. And another thing is that cloud product is actually consists of a few different products that they have in there. And I don't have details on what kind of arrangement they have with those partners. But what I know for sure is that the success of clouds depends on those partners. So for example, there is Fastly, and you cannot use something else. You have to use Fastly. And what if there is a problem on Fastly's side? And how do we know if Magento is trying to resolve it or not? And whose fault is that? Is it Magento, or is it Fastly, or is it somewhere in between? And what I mean is this is much more complicated than it might seem for somebody. And this is not to say that the product is ideal or advocating for it, but it's just a complex situation, and we just have to look at it at a whole, and we cannot just say, okay, this is wrong and the product is bad and that's Magento fault.
Well, so the last thing I would even kind of put out there is we've done quite a few cloud builds. We've launched 14 sites, I think, in the last year and some change on cloud.
Wow, that is a lot.
aside from a few that, you know, had some issues, and they were very different type of websites. I mean, they were doing a very different type of transactional e-commerce. Everybody else raves about cloud. Everybody seems to be very, very happy with it. And if I'm Magento, I'm not saying that our client mix is representative of the whole, but if I had 3 people who have issues, and I've got, you know, what is that, 11 that are giving me positive feedback, I would say that the minority of people are having an issue. So I think it's really important that you rely on your partners and a mix of public feedback for you to get a true gauge of where the pain points are, so you can learn where to invest. Because otherwise you have a skewed perspective, right? And I think that, you know, Magento has always been very, very open. I mean, you go sit in a room with these, you know, with Magento folks, and they want to hear your feedback, right? Like they're eager to hear it. They want to hear you. They want to hear what you have to say, because I feel like they're truly eager to get better. Now, you can call that towing the party line. I mean, maybe it is.
Well, and you're in a unique, I mean, you know, you're obviously in a unique position, as you and partners in general are in a unique position where, you know, you are closer in the loop, you know, you're at the partner summit and things like that. And then the broader community, like, you know, me and others are involved in a different way. But yeah, I think well said on those points. We got to find a way to segue to another topic.
Well, here's a good segue. Phillip has a hard stop because I got to get on the phone with a client at 3.
There you go. That's easy.
That's a great segue.
That's a real easy segue. Well, cool. Okay. It sounds like we're getting so Slava. First of all, thanks for joining us. Thanks for everything. Thanks for the artwork. Freaking love it. Any last you know, things you want to point people to check out? Anything you want to plug? Any questions topics you want to hit for the next couple minutes?
I don't think we have time for topics and questions, but just to wrap it up, if you're interested, just go to YouTube and look for Slava Kravchuk, Slava Kravchuk, and find the YouTube channel, subscribe. There are English captions. You can manage it, people. So follow our adventure to Africa and go to atwix.com, atwix.com. Go to the blog, search for Wallpapers, download some artwork, and yeah, let's stay in touch.
Awesome.
Phillip, you want to take us home?
Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And make sure you go over to Magetalk.com to get everything else Magetalk related. If you're new around here, we've got a really nice way of getting you into the show and introducing you to some of the ideas and themes that we talk about every single week here. Like and subscribe everywhere that you get podcasts. It's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify, and then also on Google Play or any smart speaker device with the phrase "Play Magetalk Podcast." And also subscribe on YouTube. We want you to get in on these live events that we seem to be doing with ever more frequency. So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time. Peace.